We kind of. All right, it's 6 p.m. So we'll call this special session for the public hearing for the tax levy to order with a quick roll call.
Sue Erickson.
Here.
Ken May is absent. Joel Newman.
Here.
Sean Birdsall is absent. And Craig Conley.
Here. Just for everybody's information, this is the first part of this meeting, which is going to start right now, or we just started, is the public hearing for the tax levy, and that's for the fiscal year 2026. So that's your calendar year, cities, not calendar year, that's your city's fiscal year from July 1st through June 30th of 25 into 26. So we by law are required to host this hearing here. Everybody probably received their little letter in the mail that told where your taxes are going and how those are allocated and what the levy rate was for the school, the city, the county, the community colleges. This is what we need to do is now we need to open the public hearing, right? With another roll call. And we just open the public
Nobody
hearing.
just opened public.
We're opening the public hearing. So if there's anybody in the audience that was here to talk about the levy rate or wanted to, feel free to stand up, introduce yourself and proceed with your comments. Did we receive any written?
I have not received any written or
All right,
verbal
comments?
at City Hall.
Okay, or verbal at City Hall.
Oh,
Just another double check. Nobody here is interested in questioning or talking about the levy rate. You feel, do you feel?
Percentage of what? Well, we're asking for 10% more of actual dollars than what we asked for last year. But I ran some numbers on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different properties in town that valued anywhere from $265,000 to almost $600,000. The increase we're asking for that'll affect those taxes. So the one that's 265,000, it's going to increase their taxes for city's portion of taxes only by $13. For the person who owns the almost $600,000 home in town, it's going to increase their taxes by $29.03
Annually.
annually. Yes. So the thing you got in the mail from the county, it says 10%, but that's 10% more in actual dollars that we're asking for. When the valuation increased across the community by the growth, by the more property that we have, more houses, we're actually getting 10% more dollars than we did last year. But it does not mean that each property is going to increase by 10%.
Okay, and the reasons for the Slater increase in staff,
Mhm,
increase in insurance.
mhm.
Even with the increase, we're still not cash flowing. As a city, revenues to operating expenses, right? That's a fair statement. Without using rollover funds, we don't cash flow.
Just for clarity. I'm looking at the line that says, total revenue or property tax. And you said we're up 10%, we're actually only up 10.5%.
Yeah, it's
It's-
complicated.
There's, when you look at the one that we put out, that's just cities, it says we're going up 10%,
Agreed.
but
But just for clarity,
Yeah.
we're going up
yeah,
on $1 million, the general expense, so excluding the lagoon and the water. They split it into funds, and the general fund, we're going up to $16,000 on $1 million budget. It's about 1.4%. So that's why I want to clarify.
yeah.
I guess I didn't notice that the other form said that, the one that the state, county, whoever sent it out.
There's one that's just ours that says it's going up the 10%, but
Okay. But our effective rate is, if you look at the total taxes we collected last year and the total taxes we intend to collect next year, that gross number is up $16,000.
our millage rate is actually going down. It's the current year we're in, like taxes you just probably paid in March, was $12 and approximately 82 cents for the tax levy on your property. Next year's is actually $12.63, so it's going down a few cents per what we're asking for is actually going down.
What
levy
we're
rate
asking
is going
for
down.
Going down, what we're getting is going
That's
up.
lying.
But your valuation,
That's just lying with numbers. You're gonna draw more tax. Period.
Based on the valuation, which is the state
Doesn't matter
house's
what
effort
the base
to,
is, my taxes will go up.
yes,
I mean, it just.
Yes.
makes
Yep.
sense.
thanks to the county assessor.
There was just. I was among the 10, and I know it's not just like the 10 highest in the nation. I mean, it has to stop somewhere. A person's on like a fixed income, I don't care, it's just always increasing. People need to speak up. I mean, I have to live within my. Just endless.
The insurance increase spoke up.
a couple of years ago, we were paying approximately 65,000 for property insurance and, this year or last year it went up to 85,000. This year it's around 120. So they are just increasing their insurance rates exponentially. So in 3 years, we doubled what we're paying in property insurance.
And really from a opportunity, the municipal cities or municipalities, we're fairly limited in terms of what our options are, because there's a lot of insurance providers that won't carry the insurance for a municipality due to operations and liability. So I think like right now in the state of Iowa, there's like 3 different carriers that are actively writing. So your options are somewhat like nothing. And the Iowa League of Cities, the Association of Des Moines, has tried to put together like a program and then try to entice insurance companies to come in. And basically the objective is by the law of large numbers, you basically get all the cities together to buy, and then that should create the concept of what insurance is based on. But even with that, as you guys probably have seen on your homeowners insurance, everybody is kind of getting hit with some sort of increase related to the weather that we have here. And we did have one property loss in the last year, and that was on our greenhouse. We had kind of a unconfirmed mini tornado kind of go through the south side of town and ripped off panels on the greenhouse and took out trees in the cemetery. So we did have a claim related to the greenhouse down at the wastewater treatment. So they obviously always penalize you for that too. Even though we asked the storm to go south. All right, no other questions, any other comments? We can close this public hearing. Is that okay? We'll close the public hearing here at 6:08, Jen.
Just one quick, just for perspective. I was gonna wait till public had a chance to comment first. As I mentioned, again, the taxes are going up, even though the mill rate's going down. And to put it in perspective, I just need to know for myself, we're up 1.4% on our general fund, which is the $16,000 I mentioned. Jen mentioned, you know, our costs are going up. Consumer Price Index, which is the national measure of inflation, was 2.9 last year. And I looked at the business index also, assuming the city runs more like a business, and that was actually 3.8%. So we're actually collecting less in inflation than what our costs may be going up.
No, I understand the cost.
Okay.
I understand.
So, and no, I wasn't
But
addressing
I
it, that
mean,
was.
the insurance and everything,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
huge increase.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to refute your comments. This was something I had prepared in advance, obviously. So it's where we're at right now. So I was just trying to put that in perspective of the council as to where we're at and the public. That was all I had, Taylor.
All right, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Close.
Close. We close it at 6:10, we can call it that. We close it after Craig's comments. And then Joel with a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Sue with a second. All those in favor signify with the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll adjourn. Meeting closed at 6:10. So now what has to happen legally is we have to take a short break. So we'll take a short 15-minute break here. If you're online, Then what happens is we'll begin the next portion of the meeting because we legally have to have separate meetings for that purpose. This meeting has to be exclusively just for that purpose. So now you have a few minutes here to mingle or just awkwardly sit there and stare at us, whatever you prefer.
No, you don't look like it.
I set a timer, so we're good.
All right.
And.
Who's the best storyteller?
Basis high.
No volunteers.
Look at your cards and you figure out. If you can take. One card you put on the board, then you can see. One card, so you can't see the card, you can see the card inside what's trying to do. And then you go back up to 7. If you grab one, you get your, I think it's like if you get the tricks, it's like 10 things. Plus all the other tricks you got. And then you get set. So you're zero. Nope. Yep. 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 It's really fast. People pick up on it. It's like we have. Yeah, we have one that's. So it's like really short. Oh, really? And then that's why. And then they have a big one.
This is, I think, the big. Which one?
So there's a Catan.
Oh,
Is there
is it
really-
74? Oh.
It's not.
It's a little bit easier than to ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ticket ride's not that hard. I think Catan's harder than.
Wrapping your brain around it.
Oh,
I think Catan's harder.
yeah, we didn't open it, we were like.
I think Catan, you need a need. Yeah.
Fine.
You'll need a need.
Although we wanna play it just so we can teach somebody. Help them play.
But it doesn't take like 2 hours to
No.
teach somebody how to play. It's not one of those.
Yeah.
Like Wingspan, have you heard of Wingspan?
Talk,
That one's insane. That one, I don't like that.
Yep. Talk amongst yourselves.
Nerdy.
Wasn't it the coffee clutch? Wasn't it the coffee clutch?
It's a blast.
Coffee talk.
I like that one.
But when the group, I thought they called themselves, was it Myers?
And that's
Well,
Myers.
Yep.
He was the lazy guy.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was the coffee clutch.
Oh.
Yeah, he come up with it here.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to. It's like Dungeons and Dragons worse than that though. It's like, this is, I'm like, I'm not doing this. Oh, yeah. No, I know. We played cool. Yes. I know horse racing game. I know that. Yep. Are you too? That's it. Yeah. And then,
But it's fun.
there's a game.
And you're rolling back.
Yeah.
You
But
get
it's
into it.
yeah. Camel up is another one. That's fun. It's, you have to like. Full wager cards and stuff. They have like 5 camels go one way and these 2 are called crazy camels the other way. And you have to, it's crazy. You have to take cards and then finally roll dice to move. Camels move and you have to bet on which one's gonna win, which one's gonna win the round. That kind of thing. Which one's gonna win overall. It's a blast, because the camels can sit, can sit on top of each other,
Yeah.
which is funny, because then they get stuck at, like, the top one is in lead, so they get stuck on each other. And you get stuck on a crazy camel, we take it backwards, it's pretty nuts.
You ever play it?
A long time ago.
We used to play that on vacation. Oh my God.
I should have brought my fact sheet I got at my house. I should have brought it with me.
Break things. Spoons.
I know a lot of people.
Here's just one of them I used.
Back in the day.
Oh, really? I figured that 264, I think I just opened mine today.
I think it's, yeah,
Play cards.
Yeah, the first one I had on was.
That's one that.
Our meat pasture place.
Oh, really?
And that's why they're cutthroat.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Public comment?
You know how to count cards, I like that.
Yeah.
We don't have one in this, but
We
we'll
don't
obviously
technically
take the
have one, but
public.
yeah,
I'll take the public comment on anything or allow it. Discussion.
yeah.
I like let it look at block it. That's your stuff going on. Like, 9 hours.
We play a lot of hearts.
That's How's everybody's bracket doing? Anybody fill out a bracket? Anybody doing well in your pool? Okay, guess not.
I don't pay that much attention, but
Oh, my word, a guy like you?
oddly
You
enough,
should totally get into it, Craig.
I have like 4 of them in there.
Nice, nice.
But it was more luck than skill.
Yeah, okay.
I don't pay enough attention.
Sixth in our church one, I'm first in my family one, so doing pretty good. I picked 2
And both do needed classes, yeah.
I gotta see why. No, I mean, school. No, they're not starting the meeting for some reason. Greg Piper.
What time does it start? Six. You need to be on mute.
Thank you, Flash Garden.
In progress. Awesome. I try to be
Jar of bacon grease. It's so good.
In today's world, it's like, you have what?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? Like.
Are we good? Are we already recording?
We make top
I,
ones and make
yeah, we've
everything
been
with it.
recording, I
Okay.
just needed it.
All right, so we're ready to roll here for the second part of our special council meeting tonight. So we will call the meeting to order with a quick roll call.
Who's I mute?
I'll take care of that.
Okay, Sue Erickson,
Still here.
all right, Ken May is absent, Joel Newman,
Here.
Sean Birdsall is absent, and Craig Conley.
Here,
All right, so thanks for being here tonight. We've got the agenda up here. Right now, the first thing we need to do is resolution 44. We're gonna set the public hearing for the proposed fiscal 2026 budget. We're suggesting that for our regular council meeting on April 14th to commence at 6 p.m., right? Would be the time.
Correct.
Any questions or everybody okay with that? I'll take
I
a
so move.
I'll take a second.
we're not discussing content, we're only talking about setting.
We're just setting a public hearing right now.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? Okay, great. So that resolution 44 carries. The next is, this is just the city manager profile that Marquita talked about. Craig, you had sent me some edits, and I'll pass those along for
Get these up.
consistency purposes, but was there anything else from the council regarding the profile?
I want to make sure the picture quality is
Good?
good.
Yeah.
If it's not good.
Did you look in the electronic version? I thought it was a lot better in the electronic version.
I could just ask them to make sure the resolution is what
That
it
one?
should be.
It was a printing, I would say.
Were you looking at the one in the council packet?
Yeah.
Go to the one that, I don't know, Taylor or Jen, who sent it out, that one looks like,
That's really nice.
Oh.
so yeah, just go back in your email away. Cause yeah, I started to print that one, like, oh, this is bad.
In the. Like. I don't know. Oh, page 7. At the bottom of the page is a tentative timeline. So at the top, it's asking for submissions by April 18th.
Did you see the adjusted
May
timeline?
10th.
There was an adjusted email in the timeline, I believe, in the email that we would adjust to.
That's what she's
This
saying
is
though.
what I got in my packet on Friday.
Up here, it still says April 18th.
Oh, so you're just, it's a adjustment. I believe that
Down here, she's got me.
she sent an updated timeline, right?
10th.
And so,
Well, it wasn't in our packets then.
okay, it should have been in your, I emailed.
This is.
You're
what
talking
I-
about the
Copy
top
to
of the page
Yeah.
says,
Those
April
dates
18th.
will match the timeline that was provided in the email.
So it'd be May.
Well, this,
May 10th.
this
We'd do that top. page,
document
18.
is in error then, so I'd like us to be sure that it gets fixed.
It will be fixed.
Okay, great.
It's on several pages, actually.
There's dates, the dates throughout need to be upon approval. I think there was a proposed revised timeline because of when this would be approved.
It's on the
And then
bottom of page
before-
7.
Before then, that got adjusted.
So what will be?
Again, once we approve, then the timeline will follow with those spacing periods between to
Applications
be
due.
inlaid into the
Right.
document.
May 10th.
But-
Okay. That's right, I didn't-
We can keep changing it,
So I
but
didn't
until we have it
know.
approved, then she'll put those
I missed
dates
it.
in the timeline to match the time periods between each step.
Okay, so, okay,
It's the May ones, if I remember right.
Yes.
This bottom section is right on page 7. That April 18th date throughout is wrong.
right, so that
That's what's
header
wrong.
should just be
Yep,
fixed.
that'll be fixed. Yep. And some other places.
Yep, deadline for applications, May 10th.
The other question I have on page 4, just above key responsibilities.
Yep.
Do we know for sure that the city manager will serve as the city clerk for Slider? I feel like, is that maybe up in the air if
I think that's up in the air, yeah.
So I would wonder if we wanted to strike that sentence. Because it's up
Okay.
in the air, we have Jen as a city clerk, and maybe it'll end up, I feel like the way the two positions will be distributed is still up in the air, so I felt like that sentence was not very helpful.
Page 4, strike.
Change the
Yeah.
verbiage to potentially instead of striking it all together.
I would
I think,
look
I-
at your
Potentially.
recommendation, Jen.
I had flagged that also, but I didn't like the way that read, and I thought we will have a clerk's office.
Mhm. I feel like we're pretty open as for negotiations when we see what skill set a manager applicant brings in.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
so we want to put potentially in there. Yeah, just a sec, just 1 second. Who was that? Yep, go ahead.
How come we need a city manager when we have a city administrator?
We don't have a city administrator by code.
Title says that on our thing.
The way that our code's written is that has to be approved every 2 years. That hasn't been approved for 6 years.
Why not?
Never been put forth to be approved.
So is this new position gonna duplicate her position?
No, so first I'll tell you, there's all the council meetings associated with this are on YouTube. So if you want to get the back history, there is some. But essentially, this role is to expand our capabilities and to essentially focus on some major projects. We'll be the overall leader of the city staff. So all the city staff will report down underneath this person. This person will be responsible for all that oversight, but mostly we'll be working in a capacity that's focused on our things like that we identified in the process that we have our comprehensive plan is very old, needs to be updated. We don't have a capital improvements plan that talks about the projects and things we need to do into the future. We don't currently have any financial planning for that long-term phase. We've approached projects as available and as cash is available
I get it
versus,
already.
okay, all right.
I think I'd also like people to know we are understaffed compared to cities of our size.
Doesn't seem that way.
Well, I'm telling you, yeah, that's a fact. There's
Yeah.
been a survey.
We did some comparison and cross analysis about where we're at. And I think the other part of it too is it's a strategic point in time where we know that if we don't begin and start to put these plans in place and have financial strategies for the future, the growth will be up on us and then it'll be very challenging to navigate. And so right now is maybe that window of time is the belief of council that we need to organize right now. We need to have sufficient staff, clear guidelines around employee responsibilities, all these things, but also be working aggressively to build a plan, follow a plan. And then the other factor that's a big part is external funding sources and working through the strategy and how to do that. And unfortunately, that job is a very time consuming job just in that nature.
I might be a little biased, but the community engagement section on page 5,
Not at all.
can we put instead of having Christmas on Main, gather and town divide tailgate, can we just put 4th of July, Christmas on Main and gather?
In my notes, I didn't get it sent out till today, but I had.
He had it in
July
there.
4th is our biggest celebration.
Why isn't 4th of July in there?
I was wanting to talk to her about, but anyway.
Yep, we'll get it added.
Uh,
And that was in Craig's as well.
You guys screwed up. I thought I copied all you guys. Maybe that one sent it to Taylor.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, just to say that triggered me is this position, the expectation of this position will be that the funding, that they will offset their cost with funding that's generated and brought in through outreach and through financial strategies. So there's multiple ways, and we went through that in some of the meetings where this role can be held accountable to achieving that. And will be paid a base salary instead of hourly, so. What other questions?
That's all I have.
We'll make sure those edits get done. Craig had a list of them as well. I've noted them here and I'll copy the team here on that email for those corrections. we'll get the final correction. But is there a motion to approve this based upon the council's edits?
We accept the
Profile.
proposal as put together by the.
Second?
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and any abstention. Okay, the next item. Discussion direction given to building committee from Slater Library and Community Center project. And I do have your document here. I will. Scroll to for you. Way more efficient way to get there. Oops. Here you go. Does that work, Ira?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things from me, but then other people who are here can see what is in the council packet as well. A couple of faces that I'm not as familiar with here, so just in case, I'm Claire Wilcox, I'm the chair of the building committee for the proposed community center City Hall Library project. Our purpose in talking with the council tonight is to just sort of figure out what a path forward plan might be. And in preparation of doing so, one of the things that we were asked by, as a committee, by the council to do was to look into other ways that other construction possibilities right now are applications are architect here and their building as designed is running around $400 per square foot. So it's about $6.9 million for the building as it stands now, which is about a little over 17,000 square feet. We do have a bid from a third-party contractor that's substantially less than that at 285, and then we've also looked into using a different kind of metal building, a commercial metal building structure instead of what we have as an FBH design, and so that's coming in roughly at $250 a square foot. This calculation, if you actually did it, doesn't equal 250 times 17,201. There we go, over there on the left side. Because that cost didn't include anything for furnishings on the inside of the building, so I factored those into the spreadsheet as well. Using other figures that we've done for what those furnishings cost. So does that make sense to council? That's what we've done so far to see what are the ways can we build a building that costs less. So we met as a committee last Thursday. Ken was at that meeting, so I got his feedback at that meeting, and then I also talked to Sean on Friday as well. So I've got feedback from them on things, but as a committee, what we determined in our meeting, and there's a couple of new things in here to run past, but the first thing is that we want to continue to look at our Main Street location. There's lots of opinion that swirls around about moving it here, moving it there. We feel pretty strongly that the economic catalyst opportunities of having it on Main Street are worth keeping it there. We would stick with our current design if we can, with additional design, and this is a part that is new. To include programming space for senior programming. So to that end, one of the things that has risen up in this process is an interest by some residents in Slater to have more programming for seniors in town. That was spurred a little bit by a new building and set of programs in Ames called 60 Forward. It's a new building that's over in the area of, I don't know where the old Target used to be, in the middle of town, Hy-Vee. And that 60 Forward building houses, they have classes, they have fitness classes, they have a bistro, they have meeting spaces, they have lots of opportunities for elderly folks to be out and about, and
and interacting with other people and staying healthy and well in all ways, physical and mental. And so there's interest in what might that look like in Slater? Could we be a satellite location of 64? Can we come up with some ways that we can be more targeted in the way that we use that community center space? Right now, it's just a space. And some people think that's great, and some people think that's not so great. What interests us as a committee is that being more targeted with how that space is used might be a thing that appeals to a lot of people in Slater. About 23% of our population in Slater is 64. And so we would like to look into what's possible there. We don't exactly know. And as I said, this is not something that we thought of. This was brought to us by citizens, and we think it seems like a promising idea to pursue. It does mean maybe some tweaking of design, but not an overall dump the building and start something totally different. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, all right, so then we would ask for the permission to make some of those contacts with Ames folks and see what we would need to do. Can we be a partner? Can we at least know how they did it, so we know how we could do it? There's lots of opportunities there that we don't exactly know what those, but we're willing to pursue that. And then the last piece, and Taylor, if you want to actually scroll up, we're gonna talk about finances, that's number 4, but no, scroll the other way. For people in the audience in particular that are new, oh, that's sideways, I'm so sorry.
That's not really your fault.
Yeah, sorry.
Hold
It
on.
wasn't sideways for me. So this is the layout of the building as it stands right now. This is the downstairs community center space.
Help
And
us know which way is Main Street.
Main Street is right here. So community center space, this space here is a dividal space that holds 225 at round tables with a divider, not in the middle, so we have a larger one and a smaller one. And then this band along this side has city hall functions, which we have pulled over into that building because much of what we would build over there would be duplicated with the space that's here. So it sort of makes sense to put them together. So city hall offices here, the kitchen space for a variety of purposes, table, chairs, storage, restrooms, all of that kind of stuff. This is storage for the club, don't fall on my head. That's downstairs. And that part of the building is a little bit smaller, so you see this part right here is an overhang with some seating and such outside. Upstairs is library. And library has a large programming space upstairs. This is the children's section here. Conference room, study room. So we have 3 study rooms, 4 study. Is that right? 1, 2, 3 study rooms. And adult collection, teen collection. We have a fireplace area. Restrooms and all that kind of stuff there. So that's what the layout looks like right now. When you scroll one more page, Taylor, that one's gonna be crooked too. It'll need to be turned, but for folks who haven't seen it before. I didn't have to turn. This is the facade, so that's where you can see that cut back. And now for the downstairs is smaller than that. So this is what it looks like currently. It has looked different than this in the past. We have redesigned and let's see how so you can scroll up.
Yep. No, don't stare at the screen because you're gonna get dizzy here. Sorry.
as a committee, we've been at this for about 6 years, right? Which is a really long time, but it was punctuated by a global pandemic and other such things in the middle. So we had some time where we weren't actively working on things, but what we have in the bank right now from fundraising and donations and some city support is about $1.3 million. Most of that money is invested in the Story County Foundation, through the Story County Foundation that is set up for nonprofit organizations to fundraise for larger projects. So the pie chart below just sort of shows the breakdown of where things are. We have about $127,000 in pledged but not yet received money. We have about $305,000 in the city account. Our Story County Foundation account is $659,000. We have rollover in the library account of 172, library CD for 11,000, and then we have received grants for the amount of 22,500. So that's the money that we've raised so far. We have worked pretty hard on that. And we'll continue to do so. I think folks are pretty committed to realizing a project of some sort, and that leads us to the last part here, which is money. We have more recently, I think, come to know that there maybe are some ways that financing could be done differently than through a bond issue, which we tried and failed. And are not in a position right now to try that again. So what this sheet is doing, and you guys have it in front of you as well, is to just recount that same money that was in the pie chart. It's a slightly different figure because in mine, I didn't include the grants because that's money that's been and gone. So this is money that we actually have. So it's 1.2, is about $1.3 million, not quite. So that's where we're at with money. So that just shows this is how much cash we have. This is any pledges that we don't have. This is the library rollover. It's all the things I just talked about. The conversation to have with the council tonight really is we've done our level best and will continue to do so to try and raise money, but we can't raise the kind of money that this project will take, or any project for that matter. And so one of the goals of the bond issue, though we have not been able to pass that, was that we were asking for $2.5 million. And that was an amount of money that, when coupled with the cash we have on hand, would get us to a level of cash on hand that would allow us to begin grant writing. And we have a pretty fair list of grants that we know that we will apply for. But we have to be in a closer to groundbreaking state before we can really start applying for those grants. And some of them require that you have a certain percentage of your funding secured before you can apply. So the largest grant on here is a CAT. CAT grant is a community attraction and travel or tourism grant. And the largest that there isn't a thing that says this is how much they will give away, but the largest amount they have given to any one project in the last 2 years has been $500,000. But we can't apply for that until we have 60% of our funding secured. So we have a long list of grants here that we can apply for. We also have thoughts of additional fundraising and donations. This is the part where maybe things are a little bit different thinking than what we have had in the past. So one of the things that we've learned is that there are ways that we can fund a project, bond for a project, but use existing funding streams to pay for that. project, so it would still be a bond, it just wouldn't be something that people have to pay for on their taxes.
Additional.
Additional on their taxes. Have they already paid for it in some form of taxes? Yes, but there are funding streams that come into the city that can potentially be applied to a grant or to a bond. So what, this is just a proposal here. What I would propose is that $1 million from cash that you have on hand be pointed at this project and that we bond for 1.5 million. And that would get us to that point where we could start the grant writing part of this. This doesn't need to look like this. Really, the point of talking to you all tonight was to ask you to come back to us with what can be done. Whatever that is. We don't know what your comfort level is with things. We don't know what identified sources for certain that we could use. And we don't know what the appetite for that is. So, but we know that we can't big sell our way to a $7 million building. So, and we've tried that. And we've tried the bond issue. We have narrowly missed that. And so really, the point of this part of the conversation is really to put the ball back in the court of the council to say, what say you on how this might be financed in some increment, whether it's what I just put up there or not. From existing city funding sources. Okay. Questions?
Thanks for the presentation. Before we start with the people that are here, I think you talked to Sean and Ken.
It's,
We
Ken,
don't forget their input, let's get theirs.
yeah, Ken, came to our building committee meeting last week. And I can talk about what he said, but I'd rather hear from you guys and then I can tell you. I can tell you what their thoughts were. I talked to Sean on the phone. Both of them are still very much in favor of the project. They like the Main Street location, and they would support looking at, financing options within city budgeting. So, but this isn't time for you to ask questions of me or anybody on the committee. We have a lot of people here tonight, so.
We know who's on your committee.
Committee members, wave your hands.
Kelly, Erica, Jim.
So, in our committee, for those of you who are a different audience than maybe we've seen here before, this started originally as a sort of joint thought between the city, community club, and the library. And so our core committee has representatives from community club. It has representatives from library, the board and or friends of the library. And then me, who is on none of those things. Just John Q. So that's who's been on the committee all along. So we have some people who've been in this for the long haul, and the library folks have worked very diligently on much of the fundraising and such that we've done all along the way. So
I would start with council if council has comments or thoughts on this, and then we obviously would welcome, we'll welcome comments from the audience here.
I have one question. Can you tell us any more about what kind of features you're thinking of for seniors, that things that you saw at 64 were similar places that you think maybe we could do something like that?
yeah, 60 Forward in Ames has many things that we wouldn't be able to duplicate here. They have, for example, adult daycare. We won't be able to do that here. They have a bistro. We're not going to build a restaurant in this building. That's not what we're here for. But they do have a very nice exercise area that has treadmills and equipment and sort of circuit training of weights and things. That's the folks that use it come in and they work with a trainer to get all of the machines set up that in a way that's best for them. And then they work that circuit when they come in and work out, and the machine keeps their data, and then they know when they can up it or they need to bring it down or whatever the case is. So one of the things that we would want to duplicate is that exercise equipment area. Then one of the other primary spaces that they have is a space where they have classes, exercise classes, like chair aerobics or I don't know what all the classes are, but things that are fitness related. We have space already. It's just a matter of saying, we would use this space that we have to provide those kind of classes for folks. And I think it's not an idea that I thought of, nor would I have probably ever thought of on my own, but I do sort of think the idea of having multi-generation folks running in and out of that building all day long, I think that's appealing. So primarily we would be focusing on the fitness aspects of it. I think that's something we would have to talk with them about what's possible. And I think that there's the possibility that we could be a partner with that. I don't know for sure, but we could be a partner with that program. It's a joint program with Story County Senior.
Mary Greeley, Heartland, and
Yes.
the city of Ames, or Park and Rec, Ames Park and
Yes.
Rec.
And their building was built with private funds, primarily, but the partners in getting all of the pieces in place have been varied. So that would be something we'd want to explore.
You said fitness, but I assume you're talking both the socialization, so mental fitness and physical.
So I went there for breakfast, because I'm technically now old enough. So, and it was lovely, and just having a place for seniors to go routinely. I think one of the things we could do in this sort of situation is we could partner a little bit more closely maybe with our local coffee establishment, so that they're right next door. We can partner with them as well, because we're not gonna have a bistro. So does that answer your question, Sue?
Yes, thank you.
Cool, you got anything or?
I'm all for it. The $1 million from the city funds, we just have to, I mean, we're already looking at different things like that and discussing things with the council, so. Probably what Ken kind of said is I'm interested in, looking at those options and seeing what we can do in that area. But this has always been, I mean, I was on the building committee a long time ago and I just got too busy with life and stuff, so. I'm all for it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about that, the 664 forward thing, 'cause that keeps that building being more versatile. And that's the whole point. It's not just gonna be a space that's empty 5 days out of the week and can be used throughout the day. That's the whole point, putting the library together with it, so the library could use it for the programming that they do an exceptional job of.
Well, another piece to throw in.
This, so
Go
sorry,
ahead.
that FEH designed at the bottom, that's. Like using their contractors and everything, that's.
Yeah, we
that's
have a
nice.
bid
And then
from
you
Hayden.
got from some other contractors,
Yeah.
the middle one, but it's the same plan, that's all the
Yeah.
same plan.
Yeah.
It would still have to go to bid.
Yeah, all of this will have to go to bid, and we don't really know
Yes.
what the bid landscape looks like right now.
Yeah,
So
right.
it could be
Nope.
this,
Yep,
could be this, or it could be something in between.
Yeah.
We just
Yep.
don't know exactly until we're to that point
Yep.
where we can do it.
yep,
We do know that the 400 is fairly accurate based on Polk City's.
Yeah.
There's variables to the construction type, but the building that was built in Polk City was also an FEH design building, right?
correct,
And their completed costs were that 400 number, right?
yeah.
So we kind of know that baseline.
yeah, they were.
Now the project's a little different, scopes, all these things, but
Our building is bigger, but it's not as fancy. Their building is fancier. Cause it has 4 sides that you can see all 4 sides.
I work in Polk City, I go to the City Hall quite often there, and yeah, it's so impersonal, I hate it. Like they have bulletproof glass between you and the clerks, and it's such a pain to talk to people, and it's not. I get why they did it, they're bigger and they're growing, but
Craig,
I wouldn't say it's like.
sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
you're
cut you
fine,
off.
you're fine.
Full disclosure, I try to keep a little more quiet on this because that happens to be my wife. So I want people to recognize that, so,
I saw you real.
So, but this is an area we can agree and disagree on. So my thoughts, echoing Joel's. I really like the 60 forward concept. And I also really like having City Hall in there. Because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't an empty building that we look back and say, wow, we really did that wrong. It was just, you know, a conference center, I had concerns, it's Jenna gonna use enough, those type of things. But by having 60 forward, by having our council meetings would be there, by having all of the other meetings associated with the city, by having traffic from the 60 forward, by having the library use the space for the summer programming when they have so many kids come in. I'm much more comfortable now that we can get enough traffic in there to justify the money of yours that we're gonna spend on this facility. So I found that really encouraging that we can generate enough traffic to say, this is a good thing. One of the other things I've heard, from both sides is, are we competing with a business on Main Street? And in 20 years, my opinion, again, only speaking for myself, in 20 years, could we say, wow, this Main Street really took off and my God, I wish we had this lot for another business. I fear the chicken or the egg though. Right now, I went through the history of our Main Street. And other than a building that one of our residents here built, the last building, I believe, was in 1970. Yeah, so we've had one building in 2001 and one building in 1970. So in the last 55 years, excluding the one built in 1970, we've had one building built. I think we need the catalyst of generating excitement in our Main Street so we can actually fill the empty lots we have. And as I said, if it really works out well and it is a great catalyst, then maybe in 20 years we say, wow, we wish we had another empty lot. But I fear if we don't get it started somehow, we will continue to have more and more empty lots instead of a busy, vibrant Main Street. I like what the station has done. I like what the coffee house has done. We all love Larry's. Sorry, not Larry's anymore, but Town and Country. I call it Larry. But I want that kind of vibrancy all the way up and down Main Street. I want us to have the problem of, wow, I wish we had that extra lot. But that's where I'm at as far as is this a competitor to a business? Or is this a catalyst? So again, speaking for myself as one councilman out of 5. And again, full disclosure of.
Roy got that first.
I'm 100% for sure it's in the right location. If we would have got a faster take on the RFP for that building out here, we would have got like 3 really interested places that we thought would be really good for that area and help revitalize the Main Street. I would maybe drop that number from 100%. I'd probably second guess some things, but I'm not convinced with the help we had from Ames too, going to Ames and everything for that building that we didn't get anything from what I've heard.
I'm not surprised by that at all. I mean, we did it in the dead of winter. I think our time is the summertime and that's where the transaction or the busiest time happens in there. So we have a bid for 4.9. And we have one in theory for 6.8. If the city were to allocate $1 million and $1.5 million, if my math's right, we'd still need over $1 million to actually execute a project or begin a project. And that would potentially take years from, right now, we are years from construction. Or year, at least. From grant writing, right? Because we also have the gap of securing grant writing, so. If you add the 1.5 to the 1.3 or 1.4. That's 2.5, is that right? And so that leaves us 300 and almost 4 million short.
Which number are you going off of? The six
Well-
point eight or the
Yeah.
4.9?
Can you slide back?
Well, I think the thing we have to go off of, in my opinion, as you look at these, is like 285, that's. Whoever bid that the gap between what we know was constructed at 400 and 285 really makes you scratch your head about construction, right? Like, where are the prices? What is the market doing? We obviously know that there's uncertainty about construction materials into the future. So if we conservatively guess that the number 400 based on Polk City's build is more accurate, because it's an actual project versus a bid. Even if we allocate the funds, we're still a long ways from a project.
If you scroll back.
Polk Cities was also built during derecho and COVID and bid, and I think it's excessively high.
Which one, Kara? Sorry.
It's the one that
This
looks
one,
the
Taylor.
spreadsheet.
Okay, I'll have to rotate it here again too, so just bear with me. Oh, shoot.
If you accept an action, I would like you to find out what that actually cost from Polk City, not from
I did go to
FEH.
Polk City.
Okay, and they gave you the number?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was an FEH number, like estimate.
FEH gave me that number, but they corroborated that number with
Okay.
me when I
All right,
started.
good.
So, yeah, so the total that I have in this spreadsheet right now is still short. It's between those two numbers. It's not the $400 per square foot number, but it's more than the 285.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that is enough, but I also know that there are placeholders in here like these that are to be determined.
Yeah.
I don't know what money we might be able to get from those. I don't know what kind of donations we might get from the town if there gets to be a little bit more energy around this project again. I think there are people waiting in the wings who might contribute, who might not have contributed in the past, but maybe like the 60 forward aspects of it, and that's appealing to them, that opens up some opportunities there potentially. So these could be different numbers. I don't know.
everything's variable, totally understand that.
These could be- You don't get that, or we
Yeah.
don't get all of them. We find others. These are the ones that I know that we can do right now. I'm not a grant writer I'm gonna write a grant. I'm not a grant finder for a living. I probably need someone with greater expertise in that area to help with that, but that's where we would start. So the question you asked initially, Taylor, was how long? And I would say probably 18 months.
To beginning construction,
To groundbreaking.
even though we won't have the funds to afford the building in 18 months.
Because I think we would. Now, I could be wrong, but I think we can get there.
If the city gives 2.5 billion.
Grants come really fast.
What's that?
Grants come really fast after you write them.
I don't disagree, and I should have opened by saying, I appreciate all the work you've done, and I know how much time you've spent. Jen, obviously, you've spent tons of time. And do a great job with our library programming to try to keep a differentiating program coming in and to attract people to come use our library, which I think is a phenomenal thing for our community. And if you're looking to Slater to move with the construction and the developments we have in the area, that's an attractive amenity to people with children. There's no doubt about that. I think we have, so my just quick thoughts, I think we have a lot of balls in the air right now. And one of the things the council agreed on is that we have to have better planning. And that's comprehensive planning, capital improvement planning, and then we have to have that coupled with better financial planning. Timelines, horizons, where we find money, where funds come from, and how we do that. I don't think we have that today. So I think timing wise, it's difficult to say, yes, we are on board, let's earmark that amount of money to that without having a great understanding or grasp as to how much we really have for what and where and is left over. I think we have a ton of volatility at our state legislature that creates significant changes. I think we know right now that we're not collecting enough on our water and sewer to cover the expenses associated with them, let alone save for their replacement. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the moment. So I find it hard to say for sure, proceed the 2.5 million's back here for you. I think the city has to play a role in supporting city-owned improvements and amenities and projects. I think there's a lot of unknown related to this and 60/40 and what will they, won't they do? What does that offer? I think the consolidation of services into one building, I'm a big believer in that. I believe the less real estate and property that a city owns is better for the city because we want to have more property paying taxes for the city versus the city taking property that doesn't generate tax revenue. I think development of commercial property is very important to the city of Slater in our future, let alone the school district that we live in, to help try to alleviate some of the taxes that we pay as residential taxpayers. I think of that location as a commercial district, so I think about the limitations that we have in a commercial district, so I a little bit question the location. I feel more like we should take what we know we can do and what we can do with what we have, and should assess more so if we're not biting off too big of a building or too big of a project, and there isn't a project between where our pinnacle is and the dream building, because it's an awesome building and it would be a phenomenal addition to Main Street. I wouldn't deny that. But there's a lot of this could possibly, and I would think with what's been fundraised and some city funds, we could be 100% there or be a lot closer and execute a project that afforded the library more space quicker with more certainty than this path. But that's my opinion. I don't vote on this council. I think the public has voted 3 times and did not want to be additionally taxed for it, but I question whether that means they care if their tax dollars go towards funding that. And I think that's a tough needle to thread to know what the mass of the general public wants in terms of this project because of the 50 versus 60% threshold. We know that it took a 60% threshold, but we failed to meet that 3 different times. And the last bond was this same design, right? So I think that's a very tough position, and it's not a fun position to be in on the city council making a decision associated with this coming off of 3 bond votes where the 60% wasn't met. So there's a lot there, I understand, and a lot to unpack. I don't know the right answers, but I think we could improve or build an improved library of less scale at a different location with funds that we know we have right now, or that we are certain could be captured in a short term.
Some of those funds will need to go back to the people that gave them.
Because they have advised they won't give to an alternative project, or you're
No, the most recent, our most recent 6-figure donation. How much was it? $110,000. There is, and that's an individual donation. But it's written into the donation that if we don't build that building, then that money goes back. So we don't have all of that money we can just build something else.
I would disagree with that statement, because you have 250 for a different construction type. So you lose 100,000 on that project. 250, let's say the library is roughly how much square footage of the design currently?
8,500.
8,500 times 250 is a $2.5 million building, furnished, roughly. That triples the size of the library to accommodate programming. So I'm not saying that's the right answer, but that is a far less putt than if we allocate 2.5 million to the project. And if we get the largest CAT grant that's ever been given, or matching largest CAT grant, and all the real estate sells for 600. There's a lot of hypotheticals in there. And what concerns me is, as everyone's worked hard to pursue this for a very long time, unless all those things line up the way we need them, the project's not obtainable again. And so is there a project that is more obtainable within our means right now to progress on or not? So
You said you want to hear from all the people in the room before you had Ken and Sean.
certainly. And I've talked to Sean as well, so I have a gauge where he's at as well.
So what was your report on those two?
Well, I kind of said it briefly before.
Yeah.
They're both supportive of Main Street, supportive of city funding, supportive of 64. In a nutshell.
Okay.
That would encapsulate it. So. Other questions?
Question to the rest of the people around the committee, yeah. Did Kyra cover all you guys' concerns before we turn it over to LeBron?
There are a couple of hands raised, so.
Yeah, first off, I think Craig's asking if there's committee members that want to speak about what's been proposed here.
Did you guys?
Is there anybody that wants to say anything?
Want to make sure you didn't have additions to what Kyra had today.
No, hearing none?
No.
Okay,
People that are donating. I mean, if I were the person that's donating money and then it's just sitting there for years and years. That's not a good look. You could go to build other projects in Slade. I don't know how many people are gonna be donating. If they say, well, I donated and that money just either went to a totally different project or it never didn't do anything for 10 or 15 years.
like a swimming pool, different design, maybe?
So I think that we're the stewards of this money that people have donated. It's just, we need to be respectful about it.
Certainly.
I think we started this project pretty naively, thinking that it would be easy. And then it wasn't. And now we have $1.3 million and no idea what to do with it. So, but there were a couple of questions. Was there anything from other library folks? Or
Joe, I know you raised your hand too, so we'll. Anybody else? Go ahead, Joe.
The 60+ program,
Mhm.
that would include paying for a lot of equipment, right?
It's not a lot. It's a room that's not bigger than this room. And just has this circuit training and then it has a few other independent pieces
Is
like
that activity with supervised?
Mm-mm.
And
I think it's-
You have to be qualified in supervision.
you have to, at least what my understanding was for the circuit, you have to go through the circuit with a trainer so that the machines can be set up for you, but then you come and do it in.
I think the objective would be to define and help quantify what that partnership could look like, because there is significant feedback, demand, and potential fundraising support for some programming of this nature.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a lot of uncharted with 60/40 or 60 Forward, but there is rave reviews about what they're doing in Ames. And I think the objective isn't to replace that or duplicate that. It is to somehow partner to bring a portion of that to the community.
Well, there's quite an extensive program in Huxley for seniors. We've been going there for years. And it's led by an instructor and there's equipment and activities on a regular basis.
Yeah. There would be costs associated with it, but there would also potentially be cost savings associated with building adjustments that would maybe offset it, so.
I just don't see this as a free trip. So the 60+ is gonna cost more money than what?
Fair.
And
I-
I know the facility at 60 Forward, there's a membership fee and you pay for your usage of that room. So it's not a free,
Any idea what that is?
I don't, has anybody been to Julie knows?
Costs $165 for 2 people to do their onboarding and go 50 times.
Actually, it's about that and it's,
$3
it's,
Less than that, but yeah.
oh man, it's more per visit. Actually, it's about that, you join and it's unlimited. But that's beside. Yeah, the other question I have is you've already mentioned that you're not getting the revenue you need to pay for current expenses. So dropping another couple million somewhere else, it's gonna make that shortfall that much greater, right?
I know you're looking at Taylor, I was gonna address this one, because it's a question I was gonna ask. Right now, we do not have several income streams that wouldn't come out of your taxpayer dollars. We haven't fully explored those, my limited understanding. It's one of the things I've been working with Jen on to try to explore where we stand on some of the existing TIF projects. We have low and moderate income, that right now we don't have a project for. Could that be affiliated with this also? So there's some of those things, I would like to do this without actually increasing the tax base that you, sorry, the tax bill that you pay for your property tax. So that's one of the things I'm hoping that we can get ironed out. But I also didn't want their committee, all the people that are on it, to do a bunch of work until they had some direction from the council of. They've put a lot of effort into this, and I don't want them to just keep throwing effort and we keep not following through. So I'm trying to be respectful of the efforts they put in. So yes, my goal would be, the numbers that Kyra put up there, the $1 million, yes, would come out of the tax money that we've already taken from you. Right now, we're on $5.8 million. So $1 million of that would go directly to this, the way she has it charted out. The 1.5 that she has charted out in the third from the right column, that one would be a bond that I would hope that we can determine an income stream that is not property taxes. And obviously the far right, when I saw this, I kind of divided up into 4 buckets. They have a quarter of the money now.
What sort of revenue source is that?
Right now, I think we have some TIF opportunities that we've let expire that are still available. There are the LMI, as I mentioned, that's associated with TIF. Right now, we don't have any active LMI, low and moderate income. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Low and moderate income that we have not used in the city because we don't have any things that qualify right now for low and moderate income use. I do think we definitely need to address that along the way. I think we're kind of high priced.
So where's that money come from?
From
Tip related to housing development.
the
Residential
TIF
housing.
is tax increment financing.
Yeah, I know it.
And so it's money that the taxes is collected,
Uh-huh.
but right now it goes elsewhere. And then using TIF, it would stay here.
There's a
So,
requirement anytime we do a TIF agreement that a certain percentage
Where
goes
we
to
where?
LMI funds and has to be set aside to be used exclusively for LMI funds when we use a TIF district like this.
Right, and
So
It goes where?
instead of the taxes of a new TIF area, for example, instead of going to Slater and Ballard and Story County and the medical center and all the things that your taxes go to now, it stays here exclusively.
for the period of the agreement.
Yes,
So really, I think of the 5.8 million we have in the total city's funds, some of that money is LMI money. Some of that money is departmental money, some of that money is different funds. So
So
It-
LMI money just disappears? What-
No,
I mean,
no.
right now it's
It
just.
just sits in the bank account
it's in the
right-
bank
right now
account.
we have
until we have
LMI.
some projects.
Yeah, we have collected
We-
LMI money
we do-
associated with TIF projects. Right now, it's just sitting in the bank because we don't have a way to spend it.
We do have one project
We do, okay.
underway.
We have one project that we're looking to use the LMI, that's the subdivision of the lots by the log cabin, but there's a set of funds in there. We're working to get the financial analysis of how much there is sitting there, and then also the legal opinion and confirmation that we can dedicate the funds towards that. But the funding streams that
There's-
Craig's talking about, when he says bond, I would just clarify, it may be in the form of the bond, but what it would be is future income for the city, we would earmark to fund that investment. Okay, so Kevin, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. I know that you guys, this has been a real labor of love for your group and. But it's all volunteer stuff and you've done a lot of efforts on it, but. Through those 3 bond issues that didn't pass. Did you identify what the reasons were for that?
tax increases.
Just, was that solely the reason?
Not solely, there's some people that think this is a bad idea.
And what efforts have you made to alleviate that or to address that? How much of a reduction in the cost of this project would you say you've made to maybe bring those folks on board?
The building as we originally drew it, was ballooning to somewhere between $8 and $9 million, so we downsized it. Tried to keep the things that were the primary goals or drivers of the project,
We
but
added-
still make it.
You added city hall to it as
And we
well
added
and put it in
City
there so we
Hall.
could sell this and get money for it,
Mhm.
so.
So that's one thing that we've done is work with the architects to make the building smaller, but still it hopefully as functional as we'd like it to be.
And did you get any feedback as to what the amenities were in the building that people were concerned about, or what areas they felt they didn't support or did support? I mean, we all know that we need to expand the library for our programs.
I think there's a certain group in town, because we've polled people a couple of times and we've had between 10 and 13% response rate on those surveys, which sounds terrible, but in the world of surveys is actually a pretty good response. And overwhelmingly, tax increases is the highest thing that people object to. But there are people who say, absolutely, yes, we need a new library. We don't need a community center. And there are conversely people who say, we absolutely need a community center, but we don't need a library. Nobody goes to the library. There's probably not a way where we can make a plan that absolutely everyone says that's the best thing that we've ever come up with. So we tried to sort of navigate those waters, and I think that's in this redesign, we made the community center smaller, because when we initially did it, there were no places around us that were large venues that someone could rent for a large event. And since we started, now there's one in Madrid and there's two on 210 in either direction. And we have 3 lovely places in town that can be rented out. Smaller things in addition to what we already have in the log cabin and the senior center. So the needs changed some, so we tried to scale it back into something that was more appropriately sized. Did that answer your question?
I was just curious if you had done it.
Okay. Other questions?
Because I have a couple comments on the 60 forward portion of it. When we saw the facility, the library isn't used a lot Monday through Friday. And this was a way to engage seniors in the community, to have a gathering place, both physically and socially. That was unused otherwise. I mean, it's just sitting there. And quite frankly, I don't want to drive to Ames, especially in the wintertime. I don't want to Huxley for all of my services either. I mean, I really value the lifestyle that we have in Slater and want to continue that. Any additional costs that they would have, and et cetera, I think would need to be covered by that portion of it. It's minimal, and they would have to raise those funds. But it really is a way to continue to use this space when the kids aren't there. And using it for multi-generation is really appealing, I think, for everyone, because that's what we have in Slater. I mean, when you go to Christmas on Main, you see us old folks and you see a whole lot of young kids. And so I think it's the center where the community can gather. And I hate the term community center because everybody relates it to a wedding reception. Let's throw wedding receptions out with the bathwater at the moment. It's got a gathering place for the citizens later as we continue to grow and some of us age in homes. So I think that's the advantage of using the space for integrating more programming from that aspect.
Well, and I meant to mention this earlier and didn't, but I think the library is really starting to expand the types of programming they offer to the kinds of things.
They already do a lot of senior programming on Fridays.
Correct.
I go there for yoga. That's senior yoga, trust me.
the senior, the monthly Friday meals and, but they're also doing things, Danielle has cooking classes for kids now and an entrepreneur class for kids. And so some beyond libraries and books and reading to different types of programming that is sort of library sees a need, they try to meet a need. And so they saw that as an area and those programs have gone amazingly well. So I think there's definitely a need for those kinds of things. And, you know, when the concept of 60 Forward was brought to us, one of the things I thought of is what could be done between, you know, to match seniors to read with kids. Like those kinds of things. See, there are ways that it's not just the young generation will be here and the not young generation will be over here doing something different. There are ways that they can work.
And I will tell you, I know there's 6 volunteers in Slater that were up to 64 and covered the hours that they're already. So they could volunteer in Slater.
There you go.
Mhm.
I think we've done our level best to try and come up with something that people think would serve them well. And I think there's some people that might think, well, the cheapers are just. We pulled in City Hall. City Hall was a suggestion by a citizen. We thought, well, yeah, I mean, that actually makes sense because we'll have all these same spaces in that building. There's no need to have 2 buildings within a stone's throw of one another. But I did also hear some folks who said, well, that just looks like you're trying to make a last ditch effort to make the project look better. And maybe that's what some people will think that this 60 Forward idea is as well, but really what we're trying to do is find a project that most people can see themselves in. And so to that end, we're doing our very best.
With those 60 Forward spaces, would they be exclusive to 60 and older folks, like the weight room and that kind of thing, or would that be?
These are all things we don't know
Okay.
yet. We would have to figure that out. I ran the numbers, the demographic numbers of the town. And if we did 50 Forward, it's like 38% of this town is 50 or greater. So.
The answer is the equipment with their volume.
Yeah. We just want the building to be used. We can figure out how to use it better. If we can make a space that's better, then we'll try to do that. But yeah, we are a crew of volunteers. We have different jobs. This is not what any of us do for a living. We just want to see something good happen for the Slater. So,
I think we're all aligned in that. Our visions just might be different of what that is, I think, and that's the hardest part with the role here is to determine that. Since the general public didn't meet that threshold, because otherwise it would have been solved. So I think that's the hard part. And I think we could probably share opinions in those things. I definitely think tonight's a special meeting. And so I think it would be very challenging to say, and I wouldn't support saying, yes, this funding we can secure and we believe that's right.
that, Taylor, what I'm asking you to do is look at ways that you can finance whatever you want to finance. And then we'll figure out what we have to do next. But the city has to put something into this.
And I'm supportive of that, but I think that timeline is 12 months from now to 18 months from now, not today or on April 14th. Because I think when we talk about this type of investment, we need to have a much better holistic understanding of our financial position. Because the changes that are going to come down from the state legislature, if they put a 2% cap on our city that's in the position that we are, while our position is stronger than the average city of our size, there will be challenges to our future in maintaining the basic amenities of a city versus higher levels of amenities. And so I don't think we'll have conclusive financial planning and understanding of project funding availability until we employ that financial advisor, we've completed a capital improvements plan, we have our comprehensive plan, and I don't think that will be. So I find it, I find
That
it,
is what the council decides that they want to do, then you need to tell us to stop. And we'll stop.
And I, for one, sorry, but I don't agree. I am worried. We need to get the TIF sorted out in the LMI to see if that's an option for the $1.5 million bonding. My concern is all of the things that are happening at the state level will really hurt towns that are not growing. And if we don't get the catalyst that I think this can be for this town, we may be in that unfortunate category of towns that are shrinking and dying instead of towns that are growing. And I think we really just need that catalyst to get us kind of kicked into gear. And well, just say, I'll get right back to you, sorry. And my second concern is part of what made me obviously be a supporter. Yes, Taylor, you're correct. We failed the bond issue at 60%. But even knowing the price tag that was associated, 56% of the people in town did vote for the project. So it's
56% of the people that voted for it.
yes, 56, yes, that's the only I can go by is those that voted. And so that is part of what, you know, we had to get 60%, we'd never get a president elected. So our margins as a society got a lot closer, and the 60% is tough. That's what turned me is, okay, if we got a position that will not hurt your direct taxes, because I am definitely empathetic, and that's pretty universal. Most people in this town are concerned about their taxes. If we have a methodology that we can come up with between TIF and LMI, that this doesn't change your taxes, then I can get on board with this. And because there is something to be said for saying the voters said no. And yes, 44% of the voters said no at the bond we're currently putting into place. But 56, even with that price tag, did say yes, and that's part of what moved me from the people who have spoken to over half the people also spoke that yes, they wanted it. So I'll turn it back over to you, Ed.
I agree with what you said.
Okay.
Not on our taxes, one way or another, but, when you're looking at allocating some money to a new project. When we haven't had the greatest streets in town, our water's yellow. We have to walk in the streets. I mean, that money can go towards something else. Infrastructure. Sure.
And that's where this gets into like a very core discussion where we have to prioritize things. And that's where I am on this.
Just be
I think
jumping ahead if you guys.
right.
went
I
ahead.
think this has been on the table since 2019. That I know the committee, and I felt the same way when I was on it, that they just need direction. And if as a council, and I don't know how we do this, Jen, if we can take a vote, like when the other guys are here and stuff, or put it on the agenda to take a vote to say, to move this one, or just say, no, we're gonna put it off until we prioritize everything. Until we prioritize all projects. And I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I would like to see, is get all 5 of us in the same room here and vote on it and say, okay, are we gonna keep this as a priority? Or are we gonna fold and just do this and take care of it? Or are we gonna fold it into the other comp plan and all the other priorities we have people bring up?
Just remember, when you do that vote, think about everything else.
Yeah, it's think about all of the projects and actually, and think about all the projects and think about, is this the one that's,
But that's the thing. you
Should
think
be
about
on the
whole
top.
Project,
yeah,
then it has to wait.
possibly.
I mean, it sounds kind of foolish, but if you voted 3 times on it's voted down, I mean, try and vote, maybe if I turn my tap on, the water's not yellow. Like, see what that vote helps,
There's not necessarily a solution to that,
It's
so
just an
let's
example,
not pull the water quality in.
I've been here for, Sue, I've been here for 20 some years, and we've never talked about fixing it. Never
Oh,
talked
yes,
about what
when I
was.
came on council, we had a long
It's been
discussion
discussed
about
numerous
that,
times.
and we found out it is. If we were to solve it, it would be very difficult and very costly, and there's no guarantee it would work. Because of the way the chemical bonds are structured in the water that we draw out of our wells.
We learned that RO is our fix. We went down that road.
That was one of the first major things when I came on council. 10 to 12
I know that
years
keeps
ago.
people from town too, so.
Yeah, Kelly, you raised your hand
What is your timeline for a comprehensive plan, prioritization of projects?
yesterday. I
Financial,
mean,
like,
I think we
what's
want that. I
realistic?
think everybody here wants
Goal of
that.
it, we want it, like you said yesterday, but it's a longer process. Like,
Yeah.
there's
So
a lot
some of it
things
is
to go
staff
through.
alignment,
Okay,
obviously with our path, and that path timeline is supposed to be completed in July. At that point, then one of the biggest tasks for the staff here, based on what projects are disseminated, would be to execute to basically bid and execute comprehensive plan, capital improvements plan, and at that point, go for bid and identify the right financial partner. So that what we could do in that timeframe, we'd have a lot of things going, but we could start with some community-based events to gather the information of what priorities are. We could work with department heads. At the same time, the comprehensive plan is basically an assessment of the region and the area that surrounds and encompasses the city to determine, like, some of the things are minuscule as where's the water table at this area to that area to that area? Can this be this, that, or that for development purposes and expansion purposes? And then the annexation of areas and how we do that, how we get infrastructure to those areas kind of fit in comprehensive plan. But some of those projects that go in a comprehensive plan then fold out to be capital improvement projects. And then the financial plan has to lay out, this is how much bonding capacity you have. This is how much you can bond if you don't want to raise taxes, or this is when this bond will fall off and more funds will be available. And then there's the tools like TIF, LMI, and how you implement those in the projects. So I think in a perfect world, like I said, 12 months from now, hopefully we'd have a little more clarity. It might be 18 months before you get that done. It just depends on what vendors can come in, how fast we can work, and how we can do it. But I think it's something when I was elected that was important to me when I came in. It's like, we don't necessarily have it. We have ideas and we know there's lots of things we need to fix. But I think the other challenge is the balancing of spending money the right way. And I think that's the hard challenge about this, because there's great points on the side of growth and attracting people to invest and move to Slater for the amenities and the things we offer. But by the same token, we also face challenges of legislature that I mentioned. They could cap to our revenue to 2% higher year over year, as well as alter the TIF, how TIF works. So the challenges there are, if the city if a cap comes down from the legislature this year in the session and says that our revenue can only go up 2%, that won't pace with inflation. And we're right now on paper behind on inflation. So a lot of things can happen and you don't necessarily live today worrying about tomorrow. And city finance is a lot different than personal finance. And we do have to separate that. City and municipal finance is focused on borrowing from the future to continue to chase amenities and make sure your city and your streets and everything are in place. And that's why we bond for a wastewater treatment plant that's $7.5 million, $8 million, and we have to finance that over years. So I think that's the hardest part, is not having that plan for me personally, is to say, yes, this makes sense, versus the alternative of what's in the budget, what could be in the budget that could be that catalyst in the community. And is it really the location and the current project that's the catalyst, or could that catalyst still be achieved in a more affordable method? But I think the council gets to vote on this and make decisions. I think that decision should be made with a full council team here. And I think the hard part is the chicken or the egg or this. It's like, yes, please proceed. We're for some of these funding sources. Unless then we find out we don't have nearly that much in the 1.5 and we're borrowing from the future, too much borrowing from the future, which then creates, as we borrow from the future, that limits our ability to borrow from the future for other things. So it's hard without the prioritization, in my opinion. And so I think what would make the most sense tonight would be we've heard the discussion, we appreciate the effort. There's been a lot of effort into this, and I don't think I don't want my comments to come off as belittling the time and effort and energy that's been put into the project. It's a big project, started years ago, and there's been a lot of hours put into this. And I think we should be grateful as a community that we have people that are willing to give that, because not every town does. But I think it'd be wise to table for further direction at the next council meeting, because I'm not aware of missing attendance outside of myself. I will miss the next council meeting, but then you would have a full desk and you could discuss this. And if the council's wish was to earmark and commit $2.5 million, a resolution could be passed to do that.
Well, it'd all be one night. And then-
But you can't give, you can't give the million without giving the 1.5 million, so you're really gonna need to vote on 2.5 million.
So two things.
Hang
If
on,
we-
hang on, hang
Oh,
on.
sorry.
Steve, I just
Oh.
nicely raised.
Sorry.
And I was anti this library, okay? And after hearing your presentation tonight and seeing it, whatever, I can appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work you guys have done, okay? I do. But for this community, hearing the council say, we can't even meet our finances now. I don't know how all five are in favor of it. I don't know how any of you could ever vote for this $2.5 million. When it's failed 3 times, and then you still have to face the people that elected you. I can't see I can't imagine that. If we can wait 12, 18 months or whatever, like Mr. Christensen's saying, and get our finances in order, maybe we can revisit this. But I don't know how we can do it now with the shortfall we already have. It's my opinion.
Going off that a little bit, I know every other department in this town has been asked to give up their rollover funds and budget without those for next year. And to wait for your list, I would ask that the library as a department of the city does the same and waits for that list to come out, just like every other department has.
I think the one thing that I would add, which is maybe in defense of a little bit, is that we as a committee have been operating at the behest of this council, which is 4 out of 5 of the same people that were in place when we started 6 years ago. So we've been doing what we've been asked to do. And if that's not what people want to be done, that's fine. There are a lot of projects that can be done. There are a lot of projects that are needed. We understand all that. We just were given a task to try and figure out how to do it, and we've found our way to $1.3 million, and now we're just stuck
Yeah.
in that.
And I think that's a fair statement. The direction has been to continue to pursue the project, and that's a very truthful comment.
And we have met with the council after each one of those failed bonds and said, what do you want us to do? And we have been told to carry on, and we have done our best to do that. I think at the end of the day, we're all of us are just people who are trying to get things done that we think would be a good thing. They start to steal your money or anything like that. We're just trying to do something that we believe would be good for the city.
And Jen-
And we don't always agree on that.
How often do bonds fail before they
Often?
come up all the time?
I've heard of cities going through 3 to 4
Okay.
votes before it passes.
Yep.
And we're at 3.
For all-
It's not unusual.
for
All different
kinds
kinds of projects.
It
Yeah,
happens,
in
yeah.
schools, it often,
It happens a
I'm
lot.
in education.
Yeah.
and in schools,
There's
it's
just a lot,
often-
not a lot of people, but some people just get the different idea, like, well, we voted that down and it should be just done, and that's never the case, really.
I think
I mean,
that creates a,
Polk Cities thing, they're doing
The
their
sports complex?
Sports complex thing. They're doing the same thing. They got voted down, but now they're going back to the drawing board and figuring out other ways to find the money and do it. And they'll
Mhm.
get it done. I mean, it's
they'll
gonna
figure it
happen.
out, yeah. Yeah.
We're doing our best. We really are trying hard, but we have to have the city's feedback on where we go next. Because we are sitting on a small mountain of cash. And
Yeah, 1.3 is not nothing.
it's not nothing. We worked hard for that.
And we owe, to Susie's point, we do owe people that have donated an explanation for what the plan is. Yeah.
That $5.8 million that you have, that's whatever you want to call it, just your capital fund or whatever.
The total,
Total cash in bank.
Does the city actually have a threshold of what they're saying is going to be their set reserves, or are you waiting for your financial guide to help that potential person to help guide what you're going to say is an appropriate amount that you should have for, hey, we're not going to spend less than X, or we're not going to go below That's the floor. We have
This
six-
council doesn't have that set officially through resolution, really a reserve threshold. I think we would hope and that was in our kind of our planning session, that would be an objective of the list of objectives. It's really hard to know. The fact is there's just not enough money. And so if the taxpayers said, yeah, we'll approve the bond, that alleviates all the problems with, are we managing the money the right way and are we making the right investments? And it's really not a fun position to be in. It's very challenging in very challenging
It's
times.
kind of hard to also allocate 1 whatever, or $2.5 million to a project. If you don't have what you want as a floor for your account.
In the Councilman for Dummies class that I took, they suggest 25 to 50% of your annual expenses. That seems a little,
Seems low to me.
I would like to have more than that, but that's what they suggest, and apparently a lot of towns follow that. We're obviously well over that, but
It's hard because your city sitting on your tax dollars is also frustrating because we should be putting it to use for amenities and benefits for your use today.
Yep.
Versus saving it for a future,
%
for somebody's future usage. And so that's, I think, the hard balance.
Yes.
Steve,
Sorry, way off topic. What is the city's annual budget?
3.3, I think it's what.
total, I think. this
Yeah.
is-
Published out there. We're gonna put it out there for you.
Total and all expenditures for fiscal year 24, 3.8.
Okay.
Re-estimated for this year, 4.5, just under 4.5.
Yeah, like
And for 26, we've kind of,
the hopper.
sorry, 4.2. Re-estimated for fiscal year 2025.
How much
So-
of that is rollovers from city, like department budgets that
That's
are like?
not-
This
earmarked
is
towards the
none of that.
projects?
This is
Yeah,
like,
actually
just
expended.
these are the true operation
Yep.
expenditures
Of the
And capital
reserves-
purchases.
and capital purchases, but
Of the reserves, like, is any of that taking away from the next fire truck or the next snowplow?
Yes, that's the
or-
total cash.
Okay,
Sorry, the
We-
total cash, the 5.8 is total cash period.
okay, so
Every,
that includes like if Mark's area is saving for.
Right,
yes,
right.
that's
Kinda
everything
like
for the whole
it's
city.
right. And it includes some stuff that we can't spend. LMI is in there, and that's very restricted. There's a benefit
Right.
bucket. that's
Water,
very
sewer,
restricted.
I mean,
Yep.
just
Yeah,
different
there's
buckets.
very specific buckets,
Yep.
so.
Change.
No, I think rollover totals are less than
I
that,
think-
right?
I think it's actually more.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Okay.
More than that.
I got it as of July.
1.9.
24, so.
Yeah.
It's 1.2.
Yep.
But I know there's been expenditures for SYCs and stuff like
During
that.
this fiscal year, yeah.
That's something.
Rollover funds that are, yeah, the departments have been saving for projects, yeah.
And is that the intention of this council, that those are what's gonna be going to this $1 million or 1.5 or 2.5 or whatever?
I don't think, Steve, that's, I think we're.
Chad, you mean?
Chad, I don't know why I said Steve. Cause Steve is behind you.
Yeah,
I think really what we're asking is comb through the books and tell us what's possible. If nothing's possible, we will live with nothing as the answer, but we have to figure out what the answer is.
I mean, I would share with the public that there's approximately 700,000 not allocated to any specific department at this point in time.
Got another 1.7 in general, right?
No, that is general.
There was
That's from
1.7,
gen.
there was 757 and under.
I think that
Yeah.
I will say just overarching. The council would like to be better planners and better stewards of financial planning. The intent isn't to remove a department's ability to achieve a project, but to culminate a collection of all projects and the priorities of those projects based on the expertise of the department leads and what they need, the opinions of the residents and what they say we need, and to deploy a capital improvements plan to achieve as much as possible, as fast as possible.
That's the key.
That is very challenging and sounds easy. But there is a lot of complexities to the financial tools that are available to a city to achieve those projects. The objective on this, and Kyra and the library committee is not asking for another department to fund this. They're asking for tax dollars to fund this. And I think it's important that while departments have rollover funds, at the end of the day, a rollover fund in a department's bucket is tax dollars, and tax dollars are all residents' dollars. And so I think it's important to just make sure that that's clear.
I think most of your department heads are citizens also, so they're pretty fiscal with the money that's coming in and being supported in the departments in the first place.
I don't think I said they weren't,
No, but I mean.
but
just
tax
the-
dollars are tax dollars,
tax
whether they're
dollars,
allocated
departments
here or
also
there.
Have plans, and as we've talked about, when we put our budgets in, you know, we were not told to put capital improvement projects on there. So we haven't, but we still have listed out, at least I listed out what my capital improvement projects were, and why we've been, what we've been working on.
We're working on it, Chad.
Yeah.
We are working on it. It just can't happen overnight.
We can work on it, but you need to have your guidelines and stuff set before we start allocating money and throwing stuff out. And also, we as department heads need to know from the city council of what's gonna be a capital improvement purchase versus what's gonna be a budgetable purchase. We haven't had any guidelines from this council of what we need to do for our budgets through this transition of how we've been doing budgets to what you guys are wanting.
We will get that guidance in the next 12 months. The goal is to have that guidance for you in clarity.
Kelly, a follow-up. I completely agree with Taylor on the 12, and I would argue, yes, 18 months before we get a really good plan. Stretch your question and Chad's, a little bit of branch. So that we can figure out all of our income streams, we can figure out all of our capital, we can prioritize the capital and then deploy the capital. And I'll be honest, you know me a little, it kills me not to have that plan in place.
I understand it's not gonna happen overnight.
Yeah.
I just want, what is a realistic expectation
Yes,
for us?
and that's what I'm
So
saying.
we're not
I-
asking for it in
Right, and I
3
think
months.
I think what Taylor said with 18 months, I think is realistic, maybe even optimistic. I don't think we got a chance in 12. But one thing I said to myself when I came on the council was I am not going to undercut what prior councils did. They got elected to their jobs, they were willing to volunteer to be elected for their jobs. And this is one of the things prior council did, and that was also one of the tipping points for me, is they said, yes, get your committee, all you guys are working on it. Go to the work, raise the money, and so I'm to some degree honoring that also. I know we failed the bond issue 3 times. But it's been direction that the council has given you guys, and I've tried to respect prior councils and not want to undercut what that was done. So
But this is
it's
the
one of
first-
tipping points for me also.
This is the first time we have met about council's direction post the last bond vote.
Yes, yes,
So
Right.
yep.
I think it's fair to say we have honored past councils in terms of continuing to say,
No, I
but
wasn't.
right now, this council is trying to
Right.
define
Yes,
for this committee how to proceed.
Yep.
So
so the other action I would like, Janice, if you and I, or you yourself, if we can get that TIF sorted out before the April 14th meeting. Cause I do want to understand that we can indeed pull this off instead of me guessing, that we can do that without increasing taxes, cause I think that's an important aspect, at least to me in a vote, and I'd like to have that before the 14th in case we do decide to vote on the 14th. So I would appreciate that.
Are there questions or comments?
I have an unrelated comment, and I know you're saying 18 months. And I personally support every single initiative that we're talking about in the room, because I live here. I want my water, I want my street, I want all these things. And I'm just saying that 18 months, if this council does, I mean, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions, like it or not, they're gonna be really tough decisions to guide this community into the future. But if you can't do it in 18 months, I just hate to sit here in 18 months from now and have a council sitting there saying we need more time. I'm sorry. We really can't do it quicker than 18 months. I think 18 months is still a long time.
yeah, I
for some of
agree.
these decisions. where you're gonna spend your money and where you get it from. And I know the government's always gonna change how they give you money, so waiting for the state to make a decision. I think you gotta do what's in the best interest of Slater and start making those decisions sooner rather than later. My personal opinion, don't answer it, just an opinion.
Thanks for the opinion. How would you three like to proceed that are here?
I think we need to have all five council people in the room.
All right. Okay,
And so I guess that's an agenda item for our next
I was
meeting.
just gonna say, that's what I'm hearing,
yep. that's
agenda
what we
item. or next meeting.
Flow through to the next meeting.
And Jen, if there's other ideas for income streams to address, what we can handle for bond, absolutely bring those up. Because that's one of the
Certainly.
most attractive is not increasing taxes.
All right, thank you, Kyra. Thank you.
And the rest of
The rest of the committee for being here, for your work, for your effort. It's appreciated. We're moving on to the next agenda item. This is another agenda item that is a challenging one. This is a discussion on the Nighthawk Field and a lease between the Ballard School District and Slater. This one is something I've been working on, and I'll be honest, this one it creates a lot of heartburn for me because I think it's an important thing, and I think the way that we navigate it is critical to navigate it the right ways. The history is, at one point, we maybe or did have some sort of contractual agreement with Ballard Community School District for the usage of Nighthawk Field. That was many, many years ago, and there is no current contract between the school district and the city of Slater for the usage of the field by the school district, specifically the baseball team. I think it's important to have those contractual agreements on our facilities. We've just completed the same thing for a swim club at our pool to identify a contractual agreement that defines usage and costs and these things. This is no different. I've met with Danny, the superintendent, and she's been great. We've had great conversations about the importance of keeping the communities connected, about the district being multi-towns. And we started with a contract, a base contract. There's a lot of hard parts in those contracts, like the term of the contract, the costs associated with the contract. And it's very hard for two people who don't vote or choose the said direction to define what those are. The school board took the lead on that vote, and Danny and her team and the school board took the lead on that vote. And it was I conveyed that the goal for the city of Slater was to keep a long-term partnership so that the baseball lights in Slater came on every summer and stayed on for decades in a perfect world. It's challenging to get a school board to commit to things like that. Obviously, in an ever-evolving world, is we want amenities. Parents and folks want amenities like new facilities. So it's a very challenging thing. The school board, long story short, voted at their last council meeting or at their last board meeting, which happens to be on the same night as our meetings. And they elected to do a 5-season contract with the district's option to extend for 3 seasons at an annual rental rate of $1. So that's where we sit right now. We could accept that contract tonight and proceed that way. In due diligence, I asked for a little bit of help from Jen regarding the costs that we in Slater pay for the facility. There has obviously been some unique costs associated with some weather-related events over the last 5-year period. We just looked 5 years in the rears at what the costs were for the field and that the taxpayers paid, and also the money that was the supportive money that was given from the school district for the benefit of the field to support the field. I think that average, that 5-year average ended up being something around $16,000 a year. There is a lot of variables to this, like estimating what percentage of our mowing hours and labor and benefits and all those things go into that. So we could be low, we could be high. But that includes the maintenance, that includes the water, that includes chemicals. We talked about the mowing, electric,
Utilities.
lighting the field. If there's adjustments or additions to things that we need are there. So that has kind of been the 5-year average. There are a few years admittedly where derecho expenses were related. In the fiscal year 2022, there was a larger year that maybe creates and brings the average up where we spent around $39,000 in that year. For the total. The other years, 7,500, 16,000, 13,000. In fiscal year 24, which is partially realized, of 5,000. So. The objective is to have a long-term partnership that keeps the lights coming on. How do we do that the right way? When the school hasn't had a contract and hasn't been funding the field and is facing similar challenges to facilities and tax revenue and all these things like we are. At the same token, it's our responsibility as a council to look out for the residents of Slater. And so we find ourselves in a discussion of what is the right move in looking out for the residents of Slater. It gives me a lot of heartburn because I see both sides, and I've had many debates with many community people about these topics, and I don't know what is the right answer. But I am passionate about keeping a partnership that keeps our towns connected inside of our school district, and if possible, keeps our baseball team in Slater.
You're ready for a couple comments.
Yeah, I am.
Can I ask one
Yeah, go ahead.
question? Was the school board aware of this tally of our costs? when
This
they
was
were-
run after,
Oh.
and Mark and I have sat with the athletic director, Danny, the baseball coach, and a facilities individual and discussed things. There's another level to this, which is the Nighthawk field needs the facility needs improvements. We do need new bleachers. We do need updated or new dugouts. We do have turf related improvements that could be made. We are in the process of updating all of our trash cans at all of our parks, and you'll see that happen this year, but that was one. There isn't an official concession stand. There's a shared concession stand with the swimming pool. So we don't offer that amenity. So people come to our town to the high school baseball field and there isn't a concession option. Our staff had scrambled last year to get food trucks to fill a gap and a void. And it seemed like it worked, but will a food truck continue to come to all those games and do that? So there's a lot of parts to this that are, well, we want a long-term commitment. We also have to understand the facility we offer and balance that out. Does that answer your question, Sue?
More than answered my
Sorry,
question. I just-
but we haven't given, we haven't gotten to the depths of this financial side of it. This was really probably a starting point on something that will probably be maybe a back and forth, I'm not sure. But I would like to leave tonight with some direction and adjustments to the contract so that their board can discuss it at their April meeting. Because we're going to have a baseball team that's going to want to be practicing and we owe them that certainty of what it is. So that is important to me.
Thank you for letting me ask questions.
Yep.
Okay.
I have an awful lot of thoughts on this, because as of a year ago, I thought, like, I'll over there. But since having to think about it when this topic came up, my primary concern, obviously, since you guys elected me here, is the benefit of Slater. And I compare and contrast Slater with a field that Slater, the city of Slater supplies, versus Huxley, where Ballard Schools built all of their fields. Ballard Schools does all of the maintenance and upkeep. They don't ask Huxley, to the best of my knowledge, they don't ask the city of Huxley to do repairs on the football field, on the basketball court, on any of those things. And as I said, I've never thought about that before. So as I thought about it, I thought, this doesn't seem right. And I got an awful lot of thoughts, and it's 8:30. And so my opinion right now is this is more than we can settle before the beginning of baseball season. And I don't wanna put a bunch of kids in a jam. So my suggestion is we change the contract to be a one-year contract. And say that over the course of the next year, we need to get this sorted out that addresses the benefit of Slater, but also not the penalty of Slater. This isn't, bringing a lot of traffic that, are people coming to the coffee shop, are people coming to the bar? I hope they're not bringing their babies to the bar after the game, that type of
I
thing.
think you do get a lot of traffic to the
Do
bar.
we? Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know what the benefits we're getting from the games, I just don't know.
I think somebody that was born and raised in Slater has probably a lot different outlook than somebody that was not.
Yeah,
I will
it's
guarantee
just the
that.
feel over
And-
there.
I think
And those are the parts.
I would rather have that baseball field than I would the pool. They both lose money,
Yep.
one more than a lot more than the other. But
But if I understand correctly, Ballard Schools would like us to make a pretty substantial capital investment into the area.
possibly over the life of the contract.
So, and I tried to take a walk at it and see, and yeah, I can see the point. But if right now you guys have to pay the bill, I'm a little tentative on whether that's the best bet. So rather than trying to make a quick decision and, risk screwing up kids for the baseball season that starts in a couple months, I would like to just say we're gonna do 1-year contract. I would at least like to cover a cost for the year for your guys' mowing and electricity and water and lights and mow, and whether it's 10-15 grand, at least cover that. Make it a token effort for the next year. In the big picture, yeah, it's only 10-15 grand, so maybe we live with $1. I'm not gonna fight that big time if the consensus is, yes, let's leave it $1 for a year. But I would like to keep it to years so we can make a sound decision about what's the best thing for the city of Slater and the Ballard kids. Cause I'm just struggling with the fact that we're asking you guys as Slater to pay for this. But all the other expenses are covered for all the other athletic facilities are covered by the school of Ballard, not the city of Huxley. So I'm torn. and
Which
I-
are, all the money goes to that too, but a lot of it does.
Yeah, this town, via your taxes, is supporting Ballard schools, which a lot of that is in Huxley.
Go ahead, Joe.
Do other communities have facilities that they are providing for the Ballard School District?
To the best of my knowledge, no, but
Not that I'm aware of.
And is that ballpark used for anything else besides the Ballard School?
There has been over the last, I don't know how many years, quite a few years. Probably at least 20 years, old guy league.
And I think it's hard for us to know exactly, Joe, because I know that there was people using it in the last couple of years in the evenings at different times. But it is a public park kind of,
Yeah,
so.
we, for the most part, it's been kind of off limits, the Ballard doesn't they use it for Spring League, which is not Ballard.
What's that?
On an organized basis.
We don't know of an organized user, another organized user, they're not coming through this. There is
No
no,
longer.
there is no other organized user coming through the city of Slater to use it. So if they're using it, it's without our knowledge really, right? At this
Old guy
point.
league.
Yeah, just that.
Say that again?
No, I don't believe so,
Nope,
Courts charge anything?
nope.
Cause I know.
because they use those also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know. Boys tennis uses Huxley courts, then both,
I think they kind of rotate or something.
and then they use the golf course. But do we know if the golf course has a lease with the school district?
I don't.
I don't know if they
And cross
charge
country.
for the cross-country meets that are hosted there or
Or
not. I don't know the answer to that, or golf, I don't know the answer to that.
and those are good examples of why it's probably really tough to
Yeah.
come up with a holistic plan before baseball season or tennis season, or I hadn't even thought about tennis, but yeah, same question.
Tennis has already started.
And part of the discussion and thought process too has to be about how do we fund improvements to the facility, which then entices and convinces the school district that this is the facility for the future, not a newly designed and funded facility. So there's the balance of that, right? Is being economical and reasonable, but also being able to invest to improve. And I think a set of bleachers you've priced, but to replace a set of bleachers, there would be around, one of the bleachers is around $20,000. And we have 3 sets. I just got a text from the audience. $2,500 a year for Ballard Golf and Country Club to host all golf and cross country. From the golf course, just text me. Is what they're charging annually, so.
I'm pretty sure that the school pays the hangar 4,000 to use those indoor facilities for baseball practice. So $1 just seems a little cheap.
I think that's the hard part, and anytime you start an agreement like this, you face changing the way it's always been. And that's the worst part about this, is it's not.
What was the nature of the $9,228 for the last 5 fiscal years?
From them.
What did the
Did
school
they
give
just
for?
give out of the goodness of their
No,
heart?
that,
or
I don't know, and I
why
think
did
there's
they
probably
give
more
out?
that they have spent that we didn't pay anything for.
They have
That we
spent money
didn't
without
have.
our knowledge
Yeah.
on things to improve things
Yeah.
based on their
Like-
wants or needs, like we know.
Redoing the infield, I'm pretty sure that was all of it. That was a couple of years ago.
And would that be part of this $9,200?
No,
I don't think so. No, this is all.
this is,
But
there are
did
some
they
expenses.
Tell you they were gonna come and redo the infield?
Yeah, they would let me know.
There's some
But-
things they've done without our
Yeah.
knowledge or cost or anything. They shared in our meeting that they had home plate rebuilt and they paid $1,500 or $1,200 out of that, but that hasn't been communicated back and forth, so there's not a joint strategy.
Right, I think all
Do
that
it.
was a partnership, anything that we see from them was a partnership.
Okay.
It was, there was a unwritten agreement, from my understanding, that if we did some improvement to the ball field, we could send them
A major,
an invoice of 50% of whatever the cost was,
of a major.
of a major improvement.
Mhm.
What, Mark?
The last couple of years of invoices that we would have
Hold
sent
on just
there
a second, Brent.
have been ignored.
The lights and scoreboard were a joint venture, and I believe it was a 50-50 deal.
And that was clear back in 2016, was that what we,
I
yeah,
think so,
the other day,
yeah.
so, yeah.
So I think it's important that it's not that they've just gotten a free ride forever.
No,
But the burden of maintenance falls to Mark and his team and to the taxpayers' fund, so it's just what is the right agreement? I tend to lean towards the 1-year agreement and then figuring out the right committee to review this and discuss it and figure out the funding path to maintenance, but also improvements. I think that most residents are probably comfortable with providing some sort of investment because of the economic benefits, but also being cautious as to what that is, or at least having parameters and definitions around what that is.
I lean toward not just doing 1 year at $1, but 1 year like at $8,000. Do half of what our 5-year average is.
Do we net the 1 year of 38,000 out of the 5-year average? Because we do have a sporadic,
I know, but no. That
it
could
seems our
happen again.
average.
That could
is-
happen again in the next 5 years. But I just,
But if this is for 1 year.
I don't think $1. That's not cool. But anyway,
Who gets the gate receipts of the attendees down there when they charge the people to come watch the game?
The school.
The school, do they give us all the activities that occur over at Huxley facilities or any of those? Why is that?
I just want to see what the reaction would be if we said, hey, $8,000 for next year. I want to see what they're gonna do, and I have a feeling I know what they're gonna do. That's fine, we'll take care of it, we'll do it. Because all taxpayers just pay whatever the property tax amount, 30% or whatever it feels like. In the school, so
60.
60, yeah, sure. It's something I don't remember. Like, really high.
Sue, do you have thoughts? Is there, and if there's any audience? Oh, Brent, you already asked the question, right? The lights, sorry. Thought I forgot, yeah.
I think $8,000 is a reasonable ask.
For this year,
And I would do just 1 year.
for this season.
And tell them that we're
Right.
revisiting for the next, after we get some fiscal things figured out.
Yeah, regardless of fiscal, we just need to get sorted out, and I think maybe it should be a holistic, I keep bringing it up, I hadn't thought about that. But we might as well just have a,
I mean, it's,
The
it's supposed to be
holistic-
lower maintenance.
what's that?
Tennis is probably lower maintenance.
For the most part, yeah.
You don't water it. I mean, there are lights there, but like,
Yeah.
you don't have to mow this thing.
They're not probably typically using lights, I would think. Their
Yeah,
meets are like done.
yeah, no, I wouldn't even like, yeah, we'd start.
Speaking of lights, should we have a timer on those? They were on the
Yeah.
list the other night.
They are
They're,
on time.
they were on between
No,
6 and
it's-
7 AM.
They're not anymore.
Okay,
I was gonna ask what you're doing up at 3 AM, but
well, between 6 and 7.
yeah,
But the power beam.
I don't know what's right. And it is late and we tried to start this discussion early, but there was just timing that came into it. But I do think we want to make improvements to the facility so that the facility is more appealing to stay at.
In the worst case scenario, they're gonna just build their own new thing that will be funding too in Hudson.
Yeah, they've got a really nice junior high field there.
I think they're done using that, right? I don't think they use the junior high field there anymore, do they?
At Centennial, I think they do.
Oh, they are still using it? Okay. Okay. And I don't know what's charged for that or any of that, and I think, although there's other blueprints, I think we have to think about it somewhat individually. Individualistically because of the uniqueness of use. Go ahead, Russ.
I wonder if there's a way to entice I guess the school district. To maybe build the ball field of their dreams, improve what we already have, but to come up with funds that aren't just come up with by us.
Yeah,
But and actually it is our money because like Joel said, I mean, that's our money too. Those taxes that we pay. I wonder if, 'cause I think that ball field is so iconic and I think it's great that we gotta try to not just save it and keep it, but to make it in step with some of our neighbors. You look around, there's some really impressive facilities. I mean, Huxley has amazing facilities now with the fields that they just put in and everything, and it's starting to feel a little bit like, we put the ball field, that's not getting the attention that it really deserves, I wouldn't think. Just being out of town, maybe that's why, maybe it's out of sight, out of mind.
I think there's definitely been, like Mark last year had money that was intended to be to rebuild dugouts. I will own it. I asked Mark to not make that improvement until there was contractual partnership. Because I think the challenge with this too, right, is the school doesn't own this. So is it fiscally responsible of a school board to put funds into a facility they don't own? Without an agreement or with an agreement, is that a good long-term solution for a school district that obviously our area is going to change dramatically over the next 2 decades? I'd like to see a partnership that's 20 years or 40 or 50 ideally, but the landscape of our schools are going to change dramatically over that time frame. So is it fiscally responsible for them to invest in a facility that they don't own, that we could in theory say, yeah, you're done using it? Obviously, we wouldn't do that, but is it that fiscally responsible for them to do? I think is the other factor too, which if you're looking at it from the school district side, you have to think about that. I think the other facts are in the school board, I think the minutes are out, but the enrollment study is not as aggressive and a spike up like maybe was thought, or what we all maybe feel like Huxley and that our district will do. And so that limits the capital money the same way that we're talking about, where do we allocate these capital funds? And the school district is just like the city in terms of there are a lot of departments that are seeking funds for alternative things. I know the tennis courts, obviously they're overflowing to Slater. They're not large enough. The track and the field, the usage, the number of participants using the track during track season is an insane number to coordinate from junior high through varsity track and field, boys and girls. So I know there's a lot of facility challenges that our district faces, and just like our city, we're looking at a limited revenue source. So what's the right play? Which to me creates the opportunity for deeper and longer partnership, but getting to that is the key right now.
I guess I would like them to know, from my opinion, very interested in Russ's idea, like, we invite you to come and build the most awesome field of dreams here. And we're very interested in a long-term contract to make that feel okay for you.
I think that's known. I mean, we sat with the AD and it's very known. In fact, we even said, would there be a chance that you'd want to move softball to a complex right by it? And could we be the home of Ballard baseball and softball?
And that's an awesome idea. Everybody thinks so.
It's just, I think that it was kind of worded as, we would love to see a new field get built in Slater. A dual facility be built by Slater, I think was the phrase.
Yeah, have fun.
But I think that's the challenge we face. So I've heard Joel's.
The other thing is like, if you're gonna do $1 a year, then you guys, like in the contract, then you stipulate the improvements that you want Ballard to do, since they've already been doing it. It's like, okay, so here's what we want you to do in the course of the 5 years. If we're gonna go with $1, we want to see new bleachers, we want to see this upgrade, we want to see this.
I think you
over.
define that all out, but I think
Yeah.
it's hard. I agree with Craig, and as I've thought about this and mulled this over in many discussions, I think it's hard to execute that on the timeline we're on right now.
No, I agree.
And so creating stability for the baseball team and for the school district this year, I think is important.
I'm fine with
Well, the
that.
real big challenge is the next one. Chad?
If I was sitting on the school board and you came back with an $8,000 change versus the $1, which I think $1 is slap in the face anyway, but I'd be really shocked on that. Even if you brought the numbers. I mean, you're looking at trying to recoup a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, but we're trying to recoup stuff over the last 5 years. Where we probably should have been more on the upfront part of that, trying to get ahead of some of this stuff with some contractual agreements and stuff, but. I would almost come back and say, well, look at your last year, could we split last year as this 1 year contract at, say $2,500?
So it's 2,500.
Well, that's just to clarify, that's half of a fiscal year, so you'd almost want to double that in theory. Because that's the start of 24.
Yep.
So we still have May,
No,
June,
no,
we still have
no,
May,
that
June.
was FY 24. That was FY 24.
Correct, but
We're in fiscal year.
We're in 25 right now. There's
Correct.
no numbers from 25.
and part of that will hit at the conclusion of this year, because that would be
No.
fiscal year.
Look at this
Yeah, you're right.
TV
We're
lights
done with
library.
FY
It should have been
24.
signage.
You're right.
It went
Okay.
from 1,700 to 10, to 11,000.
So which one did you say changed? Oh, field maintenance.
And Chad, I looked at,
Yeah,
I've tried to go back on research and estimates of
Could have been
average annual cost
Yeah, I mean, just.
are between 18 and 44
Mowing is
thousand for
pretty
a
well
baseball field.
set.
So that's why it
We're
was-
about twice a while.
Yes, we got a blip year in their tie, but it seems like as average maintenance goes, that's there. I think, Mark, you probably would be the first to admit, maybe get some different maintenance that if you had more money, you'd spend more money, but.
Oh, for sure. That's always the case.
Percent of your salary and what you're allocating for there for maintenance or mowing and so on and so forth might be a little lower than what really it is, just because we usually have like somebody out there mowing and somebody weeding and somebody striping it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like that.
we pretty well mow it twice a week, that's a guarantee. Figure an hour, maybe have 2 more, but who knows? I mean, there's a lot of, the mowing is very,
Yeah, and do they pay electricity year round? Do they pay water year round? Those are the things that are in question. So I think arriving to the right dollar amount that is not sticker shock, to your point of, wait, we've paid nothing and now you want $8,000? We don't have. We've allocated our budget. Where are we gonna get $8
Still
grand
would like to
or
see
16
direction.
grand or? So I think that's the needle that I guess I'm looking for, the direction of the council or public's opinion on how to thread.
Unless somebody's got more commentary, I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we have a 1 year contract for $8,000. And part 2, 1.1, we over the next year agree to a longer term contract so that we can finance doing it correctly to the level they would like us to do. But they're gonna have skin in the game for that. rather than just,
Cause
you
that
guys
was-
are taxpayers.
and that was- I mean, they can come back to us and say. That's scary. I can't believe you did that to us, 8,000. We need to do the dollar. And I mean, I think, I just want to know their reaction.
Yeah.
But this is a school that would like to build I looked it up, Johnston, Newton spending $3.5 million on a new stadium. They would like to do that. Your payments on that are gonna be
Every school wants to do that.
$300,000 a year. We're a bargain.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Even if we do significant improvements and they end up paying 80, 90, $100,000.
yeah, but I
then
think.
it's still a bargain versus a new one.
I definitely think it's a bargain, but I think the other avenue that was brought to my attention in conversation is. You know, you want to be careful about poking a bear in the sense that if you give them the motivation to pursue private donation and to aggressively go towards that, they may do that. And so. That's the hard part.
Yeah, and that's why I said, instead of making knee jerk, let's kick it down the road for a year and do a better job over the next 12 months, so we have a good position for next year.
Certainly. Yeah,
So
there was just a
that's
comment in
my-
the.
That's my motion.
There was just a comment in the chat that said the concessions and restrooms would need to be improved for Ballard to continue using the field. So it's a request for improvement, obviously, among the long list of things we would all like to improve about the facility. But that was a comment.
So do they use the restroom that's down the way
Correct.
or, okay? They're not-
Well, there is
they're
one on
not-
the bathhouse also, on the end of the
Is that
bathhouse.
open?
They very often are in the shower rooms.
They don't like that,
The pool doesn't like that. Cause then they've got to keep track of who's
yeah.
supposed to be in the pool and who's not supposed to be in the pool.
Mud from the clean comes up in the bathroom, then gets tracked into the pool as well.
Ah,
We just.
There's 4
Probably
outside
half full.
restrooms. A lot of.
Yeah, I think there's no argument that our facility could be much nicer. The question is, how do we fund that? And do we fund it in partnership some way? And where do you start? Anytime you're starting an agreement, it's painful to change the way that it's always been done. So I have a motion to go a year at 8,000.
Can you amend that to?
I would
I'm
like,
thinking of the half, I'm thinking of. Talking to Mark. About the half of like expected costs and it's closer to 4,000 or 5,000 than 8,000. I just want something.
would you be willing to amend it to 5?
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, I'm not gonna check. I even said if we don't change it all at the dollar, but. I
wanna
think
just-
Ballard Schools has a $20 million budget, so in the scale of
You also
changing
got-
their dollar figure.
You also got someone, they're not gonna just say, okay, we can't do anything for this year, because they can't not have something this year. At the timing right now, so. And then, and they can come back to the table too, I mean, we'd love to have them. I mean, they're gonna have to renegotiate next year.
Right,
So
we
only
have
1
to
year thing.
negotiate, so we aren't in the same spot next year. We have a long-term
I'll
plan.
second it for the 5
For 1 year.
for 1 year. Yep.
Any final discussion on that?
I think, can we put some language in there about,
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
negotiations for shared responsibility for the field in the future?
Yeah,
Yeah. I like that.
yeah. Yep, yeah, because the contract, there are things in the contract, like the district, if the district terminates this agreement, under this agreement, the landlord should refund the district a prorated portion of rent and things like that, that.
I was gonna argue the contract, because I have a lot of objections.
There's a lot of
That's why I didn't
objections to
want-
parts of
That's
it,
why I
for
didn't
sure.
start.
So 1 season, $5,000 with the goal of renegotiating in the off season. I would prefer to figure out some subcommittee or some group that could work together to
Right.
better
Okay.
define this, represented by council, superintendent, mayor, and maybe residents of the 2 towns, if we can coordinate that. Everybody loves subcommittee work, I know, so. But would work towards that to try to get a amicable decision. So hearing no more discussion or need for discussion, all those in favor signify with aye.
I,
Opposed? And abstentions.
Make a
Alright.
motion to adjourn.
Do we have, is that it?
Is that it?
I
That's,
have one question.
yes,
How do we come with the School managers.
We've got a couple interviews this week.
Okay.
In that vein, I noticed in the scoop, we're putting out the pool passes starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Did we have a discussion over prices for pool passes?
Yes.
Anything good here?
Yeah,
Those-
Park and Rec approved something, sorry, I guess. Yeah,
They approved an increase.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, that's my bad.
Okay,
I'll have them on the next
and if
agenda.
we disagree, then,
They just had their meeting last week, so,
Okay.
and I'm did that final approval.
okay. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't.
They're going
have
from,
differences between the-
they're going from
tomorrow.
$3 to $4 to, no, they're going from $3 to $4, depending on whether you're Ballard resident or not, for daily admission to $5 across the board for everybody. And I'm not,
Are we good?
Yeah.
So we need to see those pool rates on the 14th.
Yeah, and how many we sell and, you know, what will be in for a financial on the pool this year versus with new rate schedule.
Okay, so we had a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify with aye.
I.
Opposed? Adjourned at 8:37 PM. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, no, it's one. I think it's. Don't mind, totally.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
You can, I mean, if you want to, what the idea is.
Maybe not
Well, I would say, but they turned it down.
If I go there, if I have time for.
I love it.
Yeah, there.
Oh, that seemed like. But it's a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too.
No, that's all.